I'm feeling it. I am feeling it.
So, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who scored only 4 Rouges all last season, Jack.
The Stampeders are over the hump and back on top. 2018 Grey Cup champions.
Yeah, man, I eat chalk for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Here's a 50 to the 40, down near the 20. He's going to score! Touchdown! A chance to win! Will they get it? Yes, they will! Unbelievable! Holy goodness!
Whew! Muy caliente.
And we are live with the third episode of the Red, the White, and the Rouge podcast. We are previewing week 2 of CFL DFS action this week. But before we jump into that, as usual, my name is John. I'm joined by Rob. You guys can follow us on Twitter at JohnHewish_, or you can follow Rob at RobMcSports. And you can follow our podcast on there as well. It's RW and the Rouge. So go follow all those if you want to keep up with the podcast. We're on iTunes as well. So for you guys that have suffered through listening on YouTube or SoundCloud, we appreciate you endlessly, but we're giving you the option to listen on iTunes and Google Play now. So if that is your preferred platform, go ahead and check them out. Also, we're running a contest this week. Our friends over at Vicehood have been generous enough to put up $100 cash so that we can just run a contest for you guys. So if you're not signed up yet on vicehood.com, go do so now. It's free, and the contest is free. The rules are on the page. It's interesting because we've kind of tinkered with the pricing a bit. It's not exact DraftKings pricing. It's like a $500 salary, and then you got to stay under that. And then there's bonuses. If you make your pick tonight, Tuesday night, hopefully this is up Tuesday night, you get 6 bonus points just for posting tonight. And if you post it tomorrow, Wednesday, you get 3 bonus points as well. So do that now. All right, that's enough shilling for us. How'd your week 1 go?
My week 1 didn't go fantastic. I think that we all wish we had played Trevor Harris last week. I think everyone on earth wishes they had played Trevor Harris. But apart from that, I feel like I did pretty well. Greg Ellingson did not have the week I expected. It looks like Ricky Collins Jr. is a big target for Harris. And I did win my gambling lock of the week, though. So overall, I made money this week. And really, isn't that what it's all about?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. So I fired a bunch of entries into the big contest that had a lot of overlay. I had a lot of Trevor Harris. I also had a lot of Antonio Pipkin, who was on pace for 15 points, and then he just died. Literally, he left the game injured, so that was unfortunate. Didn't have enough Trevor Harris, and I had too much Greg Ellingson and Eric Rogers. I had some nice wide receiver, some nice running back combos. My favorite one last week was the stand back Moses Madu with Andrew Harris play. All those guys smashed value just so I could pay up for Ellingson and Rogers, who combined for 20 fantasy points. Kill me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's the thing with week 1 as well. You really don't know all that well how the guys are going to do. But I think we'll see these star players kind of more reach their peak as the season goes on.
I just wish I could have played 6 running backs last week. Looking back on it, that's all I wanted. Just
no one from BC though.
No, we're not playing any running backs on BC anytime soon. We'll get into why that's the case later on in the show.
Well, the big news, though, of course, if we're just going to go and quickly talk about last week, was the Simone Lawrence hit on Zach Collaros. John, what'd you think of that? You saw it, and you saw it live, didn't you?
Yeah, it looked pretty dirty. I mean, it looked like he had clear intent to go for his head, and Simone Lawrence, of all people, former teammate of Zach Collaros, should know what his history with concussions has been. Alex Singleton was crying from across the border about how Simone Lawrence should get suspended from for the season, which I think is a bit extreme.
I didn't hear about that. That is extreme.
I know. I thought about the immediate response for me was so typical asshole. Fuck you. You left. You don't get an opinion anymore. So hurt by him leaving. No, but it's shitty. I don't think 2 games is anything. in like a 20 week season. It's like an NHL player, you see him do that, that's like a 10 game suspension. That's not enough.
I actually kind of disagree. I think 2 games in an 18 game season is reasonable, and as well, he's not going to get paid for those 2 weeks, and the CFL salary is not massive, so that actually does kind of hurt the pocketbook a little bit. Oh my god, I just said the pocketbook. But regardless, yeah, the old checkbook. But he won't be playing next week. He won't be playing the week after, and I think that's probably fair. Simone Lawrence has been doing things like this for a while. He's never been one of the players who is most loved by offenses in the league, and I just wish he had a little bit more class to not go after a guy specifically with concussion in history. As well, this has really screwed up Saskatchewan's season. Collaros was already not a fantastic quarterback, and now they are playing Cody Fajardo, and we'll get into that later, but I'm not seeing roses on the horizon.
I did say Cody Fajardo was the future, I think, in our Western podcast, and I'll
you did. I
that.
disagree with that. I disagree with that. That's about as cold as my Trey Mason take. But
I mean, we'll see how he unfolds.
Absolutely, we'll see.
He has every opportunity in the world now. I don't know if we see Collaros again this season, to be honest. Like with his history of that, and that's why I thought it should have been more games. Lawrence has a history of being shitty, and Collaros has a history of head injuries. So I think those are things you've got to look at when examining it, you know, and I feel like the CFL doesn't do that as much as other leagues do, is looking at a guy's history and what's his record and, you know, what kind of player has he been in the past.
Fair enough. Anyway, we should get, why don't we get on to the first matchup of the week, which is actually very fitting. It is Saskatchewan versus Ottawa.
Ottawa are 5.5 point favorites in their home opener, and the total in this one is a disgusting 44. So, Dominique Davis ran for 3 touchdowns last week. It's 276 yards and 4 interceptions. How do you justify playing a guy that threw 4 interceptions and no touchdowns?
Well, I don't think you can justify it as looking at last week's stats, but I think you can look at last week and see potential. That was his first game as a CFL starter. And damn, can he move on his feet. Like, he's very, very good at running the ball. I almost wish I could play him as a running back. But I think he was probably a little bit nervous. He was a little bit concerned about how he was going to be portrayed. He has the stud Jonathan Jennings just breathing down his neck, waiting for an opportunity. But I actually like him this week. I won't be starting him, but I probably will have a lineup with Dominique Davis in it, just to see how things move forward for him.
Yeah, Dominique Davis isn't going to be my value here this week. We'll talk about my value quarterback play later. But speaking of value, Moses Madu Jr., 30 touches last week. He was returning kicks. He was catching passes. He was rushing for over 100 yards. And his price boost, $200. Dominique Davis isn't going to be running these touchdowns in forever. You know, he's not Mike Riley. He's just, again, it's just like, I don't know. I think we maybe don't see that many all-purpose yards from Madu this week again, or 30 touches. But I definitely think, you know, if they're in the red zone, they're going to try to use him more, because he was like everywhere for Ottawa, and with that many touches, I mean, you're not going to find another guy in that price range that's going to have the opportunity to get the ball that many times.
I totally agree. I think both of us actually said we really like Moses Madu last week. I chose Sean Thomas Erlington, but Moses Madu, once again, I think will be a good play this week, as he was last week. He's a good running back.
Agreed. Wideouts, anybody here honestly worth looking at?
No one that I would pick this week. However, keep your eye on how Brad Sinopoli responds to last week. Last week, he didn't have a catch in, I think, the entire first half of last week's game. And then he kind of picked it up in the second half. I'm not risking spending that much on Sinopoli this week, because I don't want that happening again. However, this is a story definitely to watch to see if he kind of jumps back to that elite form this week, and then maybe he's a play next week.
Sure. We can go with that. If I'm picking a receiver from this game that, like, just as like a tournament play, Your boy Shaq Evans, he had 7 targets from Cody last week. Honestly, he was really spreading the ball around the few times he threw. So if I'm looking at a receiver, I'm going cheap with Shaq Evans. But otherwise, honestly, nobody's like really capturing my interest at all. Defense and special teams, though. Can we expect a ton from Cody Fajardo? No. Ottawa is a threat to score on kick returns, not so much without Deontay Spencer, but still a threat for a defensive or special teams touchdown. The Riders, on the other hand, no, sorry, if you have anything to say about Ottawa, go ahead.
What'll be really interesting this week with the Ottawa defense is they have a very good D-line against the rush. I wouldn't say they're a pass-rushing D-line, but they're very good at stopping the run. It'll be interesting to see how William Powell, who played quite well for Saskatchewan last week, kind of matches up against these guys. This will be a real test for him.
Revenge.
Yes, revenge as well, the revenge narrative.
I'm not buying into the revenge narrative with William Powell. But this season, honestly, for you guys who haven't watched the CFL for very long, this season is like the most player turnover on teams, at least that I can remember in my life.
Same.
Yeah. Like, it's wild how many players just switch teams this season. It's crazy. So lots of revenge narratives to be had. And speaking of revenge, Mike Riley is back in Edmonton. The Eskimos are 4-point favorites, and the total in this one is 55.5. Trevor Harris, I'll talk about Trevor Harris before we get into the Mike Riley narrative. He's bad as an underdog, but as a favorite, he just, morphs into Mike Riley without a beard. So at 10-5, I'm definitely not I'm not hesitating to go back here, At home, I'm fine with him at 10-5. Again, as a favorite, he just tends to play better. And BC's pass rush was struggling last week with. They got the 4 sacks on Nichols, but you got to think how much time did he have in the pocket? He had so much time. He had a ton of time. He had so much time.
And that's when Trevor Harris really shines. As well, I will add, I actually tweeted about this from the podcast Twitter. They have built basically a brand new playbook for Trevor Harris, with the entire basis being, how can we make it so he's not pressured by pass rushes? They have almost every single play, they have a receiver doing a screen route or a really quick in or something like that so he can just out the ball. Mm-hmm. And I think just in the first half of the game last week, I counted 6 or 7 screen passes. So I think that they're kind of working with Harris's downsides in order to almost make strengths out of them. So I think Harris, if this continues to work, might have a really ridiculously good season.
What about Mike Riley back in Edmonton?
I think he was good last week against Winnipeg. He made some passes that, guys like Jonathan Jennings and even Trevor Harris just can't make. However, I think the Lions' lack of run game really put a ton of pressure on him. One of the interceptions he threw was not his fault. It was just kind of a bouncing ball. He got unlucky. But the final interception he threw, and I believe, the last 5 minutes or so, that was him. Yeah. That was him pressing. That was a bad throw. And he made a few bad throws that aren't very Mike Riley. But once again, I kind of put that on the fact that the Lions didn't run the ball. Winnipeg knew exactly where the ball was going every play because they just had to throw it or they couldn't put up any yards.
The fact that he only got sacked once is actually crazy.
It is crazy. The Lions O-line, though it wasn't very good run blocking, the pass blocking was excellent.
They only had 4 chances. You got to give them more than 4 chances to block on the run. Jesus.
I have no idea how that happened. It's like someone was playing Madden. It was. I've never seen that few running attempts in a game. It is shocking.
That's wild. Speaking of running, though, CJ Gable, they seem to be kind of, again, building the offense around Trevor Harris the way it was for him in Ottawa. And CJ Gable's they're just using him like they use William Powell, minimal but some presence in the pass game and, just feeding him the ball so that Harris, there is a healthy mix of run and pass. Whereas, again, a Mike Riley offense, you don't see that. 8,200 is so much, though. Like, that's a lot for a guy like CJ Gable, but this week there's no Andrew Harris on the slate, so it kind of leaves you with limited options to really pay up for. You buying into CJ at 82?
He's a little bit too expensive for me. I think that there's a chance that price may be worth it. The Lions' defense is not very good against the run, as demonstrated last week. But at the same time, 8,200 is too expensive. You can get better value options and spend more at receiver.
Agreed. God, so many wide receivers in this game.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll start on the BC side of the ball.
Yeah, why don't you do BC? I'll do Edmonton.
Yeah, you have a lot of takes on the Edmonton receivers. As for BC, like, if Mike Riley's going to be throwing the ball this much, then Lamar Durant, Brian Burnham, and Duron Carter are all viable because they're all probably going to have double-digit targets. And that's just the fact of the matter. You know, he's going to dump it down to John White a few times, but otherwise, it's more often than not these three guys getting the ball. Of course, Brian Burnham has the most upside of these guys. I really like Lamar Durant. I still think he's a little bit too cheap, and he's really pressing, Carter as potential for the number 2 guy in this, in kind of this depth chart, if you will. So, yeah, still super cheap. As far as Burnham, his price is pretty high, but, there's only 3 games this week. You got to find a way to get different. And, man, if Burnham had a couple more steps last week, he would have had a super monster week, like a 30-plus point week. So he was great, even though he caught less than half his targets and had well over 100 yards. So any of those 3 guys I like, but my favorite on a point per dollar basis is Lamar Durant.
Yeah, point per dollar Durant is definitely the play there. On the Edmonton side of the ball, we've got Kenny Stafford and Ricky Collins Jr. within $300 of each other. So the really interesting thing here is Kenny Stafford predominantly plays wide receiver. Ricky Collins predominantly plays slot back. Personally, I normally like playing slot backs over wide receivers. However, I like Kenny Stafford's touchdown upside just enough that for me, I would rather pay less and get more touchdown upside with Stafford than pay for the extra $300 for Ricky Collins. Ricky Collins isn't as tall as Stafford, and Stafford played really well last week. And you got to remember, he was a really good receiver last year as well, but he was kind of overshadowed by 2 ridiculously good receivers with Darrell Walker and Williams last year in Edmonton. I think that all kind of changes, though, if DeVaris Daniels plays, which he is questionable right now. It'll be interesting to see. I really don't think that Edmonton should be rushing DeVaris Daniels. Their receiving core looked really, really good last week, so if he's not 100%, I'd give him another week. But if he is playing, I think that kind of switches things up a little bit, but not enough that I would kind of go and edit my lineup. And at 8,600, Ellingson, he may bounce back this week, absolutely. He was not the focal point of the receiving core last week, though. And that might mean that the defense was double-teaming him, which at times they were. But I also think he's only ever had one other impact receiver playing with him, and that being Brad Sinopoli. So with Kenny Stafford and Ricky Collins and DeVaris Daniels potentially, the ball will be spread around a little bit more.
Yeah, I love going back to Ellingson this week. I think he burned quite a few people last week, and he's going to be low on this week because week 2, the recency bias is insane. So I'm okay to go back to Ellingson here, especially for tournaments. That's a good way to kind of leverage the field and be different.
It is. I'm going to say, though, you said he was burning people. You got to remember this is Trevor Harris throwing him the ball. If he has the time to go and burn a DB, Trevor Harris wants to get rid of the ball far before he's had the time to burn a receiver.
Oh, I meant like he burned people, like he burned the people who played him. Like he burned their money.
Oh, yes. He did do that as someone who played him.
Yeah. Edmonton's D is usable here. That's all I got to say about it. I mean, if BC's not running the ball that much, then it's not hard to guess what every single play is going to be, more or less. So usable, but definitely not my favorite option. Moving into the last game of the week, because there's only 3 games this week. Hamilton is at Toronto, and they are 3.5-point favorites. The total in this one is 52. Jeremiah Mazzoli's 10-7 this week. Had a very mediocre, but I guess effective, because they won the game week 1 against a tough Saskatchewan defense. Now he gets to face the Argos defense, which last season he averaged 34 DraftKings points against. Can you imagine a world where you play Jeremiah Mazzoli over Trevor Harris?
This week?
No,
question.
let's say this week. I was going to say in more than half. Like, I was going to ask, would you have more exposure to Mazzoli than Harris? But
overall throughout the season?
No, just this week.
Oh, just this week? I would think so. I think that makes sense. I think that Trevor Harris is playing a Lions defense that's definitely flawed. But from what we saw of Toronto's defense last year, they were bad. Flawed versus bad. I would choose the quarterback going up against the bad team 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, a lot shorter depth chart and at wide receiver as well, so easier to get those correlation plays in.
Yes, it's very important.
For James Franklin, you're not about him, but I mean,
I hate James Franklin.
The guy can get it done with his legs. He's only 8,000. He's super cheap. I think it's tough to justify paying down at quarterback this week because, again, if you don't have Andrew Harris to pay up for, then what's the point?
Yeah, there's not enough really expensive guys playing this week in order to, I think, go for a value QB.
I mean, yeah, for me, if I'm picking a value QB, I think I'll have at least a couple with a value QB just to see what I can do. You know, I'll play around with it, but if I'm playing a value QB, it is James Franklin this week. That's my value guy. I love his upside. Should be a high-scoring game because these two teams love to just take the piss out on each other. Running backs, your boy, Sean Thomas Erlington, 103 all-purpose yards and 14 touches. We going back there this week?
Yeah, I'm going to be going back just because he's a really low price, and I don't love any of the running backs on the slate. Just the reason I don't love James Wilder Jr., despite the fact he's a very good running back and he's got all the physical tools, the Argonauts don't give him the ball. I complained about this all year last year. They had James Franklin and McLeod Bethel-Thompson in at quarterback, Ricky Wright gone. They have no passing game, and they still won't hand Wilder the ball. So if you're spending $7,200 on Wilder, you need to be aware of the fact that you're going to be yelling at the TV for a large portion of the game because they just don't give it to him. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Sean Thomas Erlington, on the other hand, they used him in screen passes. What was he? I think he was the third leading receiver on Hamilton last week, and he was pretty effective on the ground. I just think for $5,400, you're going to get a whole lot more player than $7,200 for James Wilder Jr. And that goes for Moses Madu as well. I'd rather have him over Wilder.
I don't know, man. I feel like their new coach will kind of learn his lesson from Mark Trestman. Like that's probably a big part of why he got fired because he was running the offense so poorly. So we'll see how it's run.
It better be.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see if it's run differently. I'm not saying like lock in James Wilder at 7,200, but I'm not, ruling him out of my player pool by any stretch.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't think that if they give him the ball, he would be the wrong play. It's just a matter of will they actually give him the ball this year?
Yep. All right. Wideouts. Brandon Banks. He is the top flex play on the slate, and you got to love the upside for Banks here. Obviously, If Mazzoli was doing well against the Argonauts last season, then Brandon Banks was seeing similar success. Same with Luke Tasker, who scored a touchdown in each of their 3 meetings. Do we see any Braylon Addison this week?
I don't know. I just don't see Braylon Addison as a key fixture on the Ticats receiving core when they have so much star power around them.
Mike Jones.
Yeah, like Mike Jones. No, with Brandon Banks and Luke Tasker, those two already kind of fight in order to get catches. I'd rather not add another person to kind of split that pie with because he's not going to be better than Banks or Tasker unless one of them gets hurt, God forbid.
Yeah, I mean, the targets were low last week. I don't know, the price indicates that he is like the guy, but $6,700 for that?
Yeah, I'm not feeling it.
I mean,
you could
again,
make an
it's
argument.
a way to be different. The way
Yeah.
the winning lineup last week had Trevor Harris at quarterback and Stafford and Ricky Collins Jr.
Yeah, that
But
was
no
different.
Greg Ellingson. So, I mean, you could go with one of the middle guys and still win. I don't think it's impossible.
There's no question. Yeah. That's very true. Mike Jones, on the other hand, though, going back to him, what a bad week he had. I know Mazzoli didn't. I know Mazzoli didn't get that many passing yards, but Mike Jones only had something like 1.6 DraftKings
He'll
points.
be fine. He's fine.
Yeah, that's what people said last year, and he just had a horrible second half to the season.
Yeah,
I like
he
Mike
really
Jones, but he needs to start putting up.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm fine to go back to Hamilton. Sorry, we didn't even talk about the Toronto wideouts. Darrell Walker, he's probably not going to play. If you want to play SJ Green for the upside, go for it. I'm not paying $6,900 for Armani Edwards. I don't even know why I wrote these people's names down. I'm not interested in them at all.
Yeah.
Hamilton's D, though. I'm okay to go back there. I definitely think they have the upside here against a shaky Toronto offense. So if I'm picking do I want a Hamilton D or do I want a James Franklin lineup? I'm going with the Hamilton D. And honestly, you could just full stack Hamilton D, Sean Thomas Erlington, Jeremiah Mazzoli, and Brandon Banks if you wanted to. It's not.
Yes, you could.
Actually, wait. That might be my lineup. Hold on. No, that's pretty close. Oh, wait,
That was my
it-
lineup, and then I edited it.
Yeah, it literally is. So let's perfect segue.
モンスジュアルズ
John's Jewels for this week are, first of all, I'd like to say we're 1-0 on the season. Always nice to get that leg up early. Going with Jeremiah Mazzoli at quarterback. Moses Madu is my running back 1. Brandon Banks as my wide receiver 1. Going to go Kenny Stafford as my wide receiver 2. And then my flexes, I'm playing 2 more running backs at flex. Shocker. CJ Gable, because I feel like my arm is being twisted into playing CJ Gable, and Sean Thomas Erlington with the Tiger Cats defense.
Yeah, I like John's lineup an awful lot, to be honest. But I'm still confident in mine. But John, that's a very good lineup. Very well done. For my McPicks, I have at quarterback, I have Mike Riley. At my first and only running back, I have Sean Thomas Erlington. My first wide receiver, I have Brian Burnham to get that nice little pairing going. At my second wide receiver, I have Brendan Banks at 9,600. For my flexes, I have Kenny Stafford because of the touchdown upside I mentioned earlier. And then I also have Lamar Durant because I really liked how he played last week, and he played better than Deron Carter. And for defense, I have the Red Blacks D because I don't see Saskatchewan doing anything without Caleros. And as I said earlier, I believe in the Western Conference preview, Cody Fajardo is a feasible backup. He is not a feasible starter.
Well, that leads us to...
We will see, though.
The price is right. Moses Madu Jr. is my I'm asking him to come on down this week for only 5,500 with the touches he's getting in this offense. It is too hard. It's impossible to fade him. I might have 100% Moses Madu, and I will go down on that ship.
I like that. I as you can tell, John and I clearly have kind of broken. We both have our running back that we love that's underpriced so far this year. John likes Moses Madu. For me, I like Sean Thomas Erlington as my lock of the week because he played quite well last week. And you got to remember, that was against Saskatchewan, who is quite good defensively. So I have a feeling against a much weaker Toronto defense who actually had the most average yards, rushing yards against a game last year. He should only be better.
Solid logic. That brings us to the...
Lock of the week.
What? Oh, man, we have the same one?
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
Well, it's on the same game. It's not the same pick, though.
Oh, go ahead, yeah. I meant the same player.
Oh, crap. Okay. All right. As John struggles to quickly find another lock, I will be playing the over-under game again, like I did last week, in which I won. And I will actually be taking the under on the Ottawa-Saskatchewan game. I think that John is right about Dominique Davis. He will throw some picks. He's not perfect. And at the same time, I don't think Fajardo is a starting quarterback. So because of that, I don't think they're going to put I'm going to put the under at the 44-point total. And for my player lock of the week, I have Brendan Banks.
Shocker.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was clearly poor planning because we didn't look at each other's side of the sheet before we got started. But
Lonis would have noticed that.
Yeah, Lonis would have noticed it if he was here.
Yeah.
This is what happens. This is what happens
Thanks,
when your
Lonis.
producer isn't around. Things just go to shit.
Idiot.
Lock of the week, gambling-wise, I'm going to take Saskatchewan in the points. I'm going to stand by that Cody Fajardo is the future. I like the 5.5-point handicap. I think they keep this one interesting. So I'll take them plus 5.5. My player lock of the week was Brandon Banks. Honestly, no, I'm going to be kind of sick to myself saying this, but if it's not Brandon Banks, it's CJ Gable.
Ugh, that's awful.
I mean, it's weird to say, but the way they used him last week had me pretty excited, and BC got just ran over by, and I know CJ Gable isn't as good as Andrew Harris as a running back, but Andrew Harris was making it look like a fucking, varsity playing JV.
Yeah, he did. I said ew to what John said there, but he's absolutely right. Yeah, CJ Gable is.
It's just weird, He's not a regular.
How old is he at this point? I feel like I've been watching him since I was 7.
Yeah, fuck. His lifespan is he's 100 in running back years.
Yeah, he's like Stephon Logan and him are just going to be playing forever.
Pretty much. All right. Anything else you want to mention before we head out?
Nope. I'm just going to do a little quick reminder. Please follow the podcast Twitter. I'm putting up a solid amount of content on there. Lots of stat breakdowns and kind of opinions on stuff. And I put up a Simpsons meme earlier today, so that was kind of funny. And so I hope you guys enjoyed listening.
Guys, go play the contest too. $100 up for grabs.
Oh, yes.
Totally free. It takes 2 minutes to sign up, and it's just you just get to make another lineup. It's fun. We're gonna have fun with it. So
it's fun. And as well, sub on iTunes and Google Play, and if you enjoy the podcast, please rate it. I'm not going to beg you, but I'm going to go almost there. I'm going to ask very, very, very nicely.
It would be super, greatly appreciated if you did.
Yeah, even if you don't listen to it. No, actually, I don't agree with that.
No, that's fake
that's
news.
just cheesy. Yeah.
All right, let's cut this thing off before we ramble into oblivion. Mm-hmm. That's all we got for this week, guys. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions about plays or whatever, as news comes out, feel free to DM myself or Rob on Twitter. Otherwise, we will talk to you guys next Tuesday. Best of luck this weekend, and take care.
Bye.